Okay, start again,
Well,
CJ.
well, Bruce, you pretty much already introduced the Campfire series here. Welcome to our first Campfire series presented by Buckwild Coffee and BLI and Outdoors, hosted and brought to you by Whitetail Rendezvous. What this is all about is just getting like-minded individuals together. We're going to be sitting down, having a discussion, and kind of talk about all things outdoors, whether it be hunting, whether it be different meal tips, whether it's all about getting people involved in the outdoors and how we could change lives and kind of guide the direction toward more outdoorsmen and stewardship. So I kind of want to kick off this discussion here with something that I kind of came across earlier this week, actually, in Instagram. A lot of you guys know that there's a hunter out there by the name of Brittany Jill. She's a great outdoors woman. She does a lot of hunting and fishing and stewardship. Recently, she's been on an elk hunt, and she's had quite a few people kind of bash her and give her death threats and call her disgusting and just overall vile things and kind of attacking her and her character and her lineage and what she does as a passion. We've seen an increase of outdoorsmen and hunters. Why do you guys feel that there's more females being attacked on social media pages and just generally overall, whether it be Eva Shockey, Britt Jill, Kendall, any of these female hunters? Why do we see more and more females being the target than we see a lot of the males? I'll open this up to our lone female one here, Brooke.
Okay. um, so I have followed Eva and a lot of those girls for a long time. I watched Eva kind of rise to fame after I met her in 2013. I met her when I won the Youth Hunter of the Year award through Cabela's. And, we talked about going on a girls' hunt, and then we just never were able to make it happen. And I followed Eva's Facebook and Instagram from then on through now. And I was actually looking at her husband's last night because he was being attacked over a bear hunt. And I really noticed Eva get, really bashed over predators more than anything else. And I think for women, a lot of what we're seeing is women getting a lot of the flack because women are expected to be these nurturing, loving individuals almost more than men by society for whatever reason. And because of that, there is this disgust associated with us, those of us who, kind of do these masculine activities and also kill. It's almost seen as unnatural. And that's kind of what I got from a lot of the comments that I had seen. And really attacking girls' character. Whereas when I followed I saw Luke Bryan put something up that he had hunted, and he is so famous and had a lot less flack than what I had seen for Kendall and Eva. And I think that's why.
So
Chris, we lost your audio. CJ, we lost your audio. Tom, your thoughts? Tom Opry?
Yeah, thanks for asking me. It's great to hear what Brooke was saying. For the last 10 years, I started 10 years ago, an online series called Extreme Huntress. And the whole idea behind the series was to create and promote women who hunt, basically because we need to have everybody involved in wildlife conservation, and sustainable utilization that's hunting. And when we started this thing, we caught a lot of flack from the anti-hunters. And to answer your question, I really think that there are a lot of people in our society today that are just really don't understand. I mean, let's face it, they don't know where their food comes from. We've all seen the videos on YouTube and other places on TV where they're asking people these questions about, where did their steak come from? And they all want to say the grocery store, and it comes on a piece of styrofoam and wrapped in plastic. But we all know as hunters that that's not how it really works. And these people, because they don't have that knowledge, because they're so distanced from that wildland interface from Mother Nature, because they're ignorant about the situation on the ground, living in cities and living in areas where somebody else is doing their killing for them. We have a whole society where a segment of that society really doesn't understand. And when you take a woman, a bearer of life, I mean, our mothers out there, our extreme huntresses almost always are married mothers with kids that have good careers. They're smart, intelligent people, healthy folks. And I think for a long time, the anti-hunting establishment has utilized the stereotyped, beer swilling, whiskey drinking, shooting up sign, redneck hunter as their rallying cry, and literally to help raise funds for their efforts. And when a woman comes into the field and she takes that animal, my wife Olivia, was a beauty pageant winner in 2003. She was Mrs. Nebraska when she worked for Marion Dixabella, and her whole she had to have a cause when she ran, and that cause was to promote hunters as wildlife conservationists. And the pageant backed her on that, and of course she didn't win, but it gave her a platform to talk about the importance of the hunter as a wildlife conservationist. And over the last 15 years since she won that, she's been the target of tons and tons of anti-hunting hate mail and emails. And we hear about it and we see about it, whether it be Eva Shockey or Melissa Bachman or Rebecca Francis. I mean, there's a long line of them, but I really, truly think that these women represent a threat to the anti-hunting establishment, but they also, the general public that doesn't understand where their food comes from, they just can't understand why some woman would go out there and take the life of an animal. And we all know why the answer is because that we want to be an active participant in the circle of life, and we always have been as human beings, and we want to take responsibility for it. But I think women, they definitely hit a nerve with the anti-hunting establishment.
Yeah, I know for a fact that, like, I have a lot of friends. All the girls you're naming, I'm friends with most of them. And hearing their story about why they're getting attacked and why, and a lot of the stuff, it's sad to say, it's a lot of sexual stuff. They're coming at them saying, you're supposed to be, in a sense, this sex symbol to us. You're not supposed to be this masculine, beautiful female who goes out. Now, I'm a dad of 2 daughters. And so I look up to all these females, and I talk to them all the time, and I have them talk to my daughters because I want my daughters to have the confidence and the maturity to be beautiful on and off the field, to be beautiful with their nature, with their words. And so when I watch my friends get bashed and then they call me crying and I read all the comments, it makes me emotional. It makes me angry sitting there going, but they're so much more than they're just that. And then you have that flip side where you have the girls that are just out there with their boobs hanging out, holding a fish or holding a dead deer. And so it's almost that counteractive part. Like me, I've never drank a drop of alcohol and I've never shot a sign, like you were saying, but I still get categorized in that group of, redneck hillbillies or whatever they want to say. And so females, even like looking at Brooke's pictures on Facebook, she's beautiful in the field and guys are expecting her to be this sex symbol rather than this provider for their family. Because for so long, men are the ones going out and getting the food. Men are the ones going out and getting this and that. But I'm a stay-at-home dad and my wife goes out and works full time. And I think there's that role reversal that as a society, they're scared of. And the anti-hunters, being a wild game chef, I get slammed constantly. There was a big push today. Like I said, I had 142 death threats today alone because some PETA group got on and saw a picture that I posted and went crazy and threatened my daughters, threatened my wife, threatened me, all because I posted a picture of me cutting up meat. And so you take a female in that aspect where they think, well, they're a weaker species, so we can attack them more and they're going to cry, they're going to break down, and I think they're seeing the opposite. These females are coming out even stronger than the guys in some parts. So I don't know. It's a really this thin ice that I think that the females are stronger than, the ice itself. So it's kind of cool.
Well, great points, Jeremiah.
So sorry,
TJ,
guys,
you back?
yeah, I'm back. Sorry, guys, I had a bit of technical glitches there, so I kind of missed a good chunk of that discussion. But thank you for carrying it on and kind of keeping on task there. And Jeremiah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that, saying that females are a lot stronger than the ice that they're walking on right now. And I think that's a very poignant statement in the fact that we've seen a lot of these female hunters band together and really help support each other. And we don't really see that from the male community. We see a lot of the guys going out there saying, well, we're allowed to, and kind of that yeehaw sort of mentality. And I'm all for that, but we don't see that strong support system between a lot of the male hunters out there. It's one of those, it seems like the males kind of take it more personal and really fire back with a lot of the hateful sort of comments, which doesn't really help our cause. So from a male population, how could we be better when we're dealing with a lot of these anti-hunters?
I think Aretha Franklin said it the best. Respect.
Yeah.
Chase,
what do you think, buddy?
Go ahead, Chase.
I mean, a lot of what you guys said is 100% true. As far as kind of touching back on the women thing, my opinion of a lot of that is it's just something completely new. More than anything, 20 years ago, and I know I'm not really old enough to be talking about 20 years ago, but there really wasn't that many women that hunted. And now we've got all these women that are interested in it, and we've got all this social media stuff that makes them more noticed, and I think it's just a new avenue for people to travel to attack hunting in general. I do see a whole lot more of it towards the women, but I think more than anything, it's really something new. Is kind of my opinion on it. As far as what we can do, as far as the men's side is, I think what Jeremiah said about, we don't really stick together much. It's more of a competition anymore. Who can kill the bigger deer, and things like that. And we end up just beating each other down. I see a lot of jealousy among hunters today. A lot of pressure that they put on themselves to kind of outdo everybody else, and it seems to me that a lot of guys hunt for no more. The biggest reason seems to be just be able to put up a post on Facebook about their deer, rather than I talked to a lot of guys, and actually I just did a thing at a big archery event the other weekend, and I was there trying to hand out brochures and things for Pope and Young, Boone & Crockett, Whitetails Unlimited, just all these different clubs, and nobody cared. Like, two people out of hundreds of people there, two people actually sat down and wanted to learn about it, and that was it. A lot of people wanted to talk about hunting, but as soon as you flipped it over to conservation, it was that was kind of the end of the story. Once you quit talking about big bucks and killed this big buck and all this, and once that was done, it was over. So I think we need to more band together and figure out where this thing is going, and not beat each other down so much. That's my opinion on it. We just beat each other down too much and don't stand together.
Tim?
I mean, we're kind of getting away from the female thing, but to touch on that, a lot of the females that are in the industry are they have a lot of followers, which are primarily male hunters. They're easily accessible by these, anti-hunting groups, and they're vulnerable to that. And I think I don't know what to think about the threats and the comments that I've seen people post, both male and female. I've always been on the side of, I don't try to get people, I don't try to change, their mind. Why would they try to change mine? Why can't we, we can coexist. But, in addition to the remarks about males, this industry, I've seen, more people lose friendships than make friendships, and the authenticity of some hunters their credibility isn't there. They're not willing to enter their deer in the Boone and Crockett or Pope and Young because, although they're a celebrity hunter and have a television show, they didn't shoot that deer, and it wouldn't in a place that they would be able to enter it into the Pope and Young. And it's the male, just as a species or as an individual, I guess it is a competition, and we all probably have to constantly remind ourselves to be open to other friends and other hunters.
Scott Jordan, you've educated just a tremendous amount of kids. What's your view on both? Let's just start with the women in the sport, in the outdoor sports, and then the testosterone factor for the guys. What's your take?
Well, when we look at, I take like 40% of the kids that I take places are young ladies. And, as a father, it's so hard for me with Brooke to see some of that stuff. And I truly believe that something needs to be done about it, because honestly, when it's a death threat, then that should be taken seriously, and there needs to be more steps taken than just what's going on right now, because really nothing gets done and then they get to continue. What's really nice with students is I don't have a lot of that. You know what I mean? There isn't, and the things that the guides where we go will tell you, like when we go to New Zealand, this was my 16th year for taking kids to New Zealand hunting red stags, and one of the reasons that I do that is simply because of the hunting age in New York. So I can take a kid to New Zealand and they can shoot a red stag when they can't shoot a deer here. And those kids, like, we don't have a lot of that, but I do see some of that, with Brooke, and she's a trooper, because I'll tell you, there's certain stuff she doesn't share with me because she knows what avenue that. Oh, Dad, I didn't show you that one. Well, that's good, right? But they are such a big component, just a larger contingency, and there's more and more girls getting interested, and we need to protect them. Whatever it is that we need to do. With the media today, and as awful as it is, if you can't explain something in 20 seconds or less, then they're not interested. And most of our topics today, especially, just bring up like hunting in Africa. You need a half an hour to discuss that thoroughly and actually explain it. But to most people, right, they're out 10 seconds, 20 seconds, they're finished. They're not listening anymore, and on to the next thing. But those girls that are interested, they truly want to be part of that. And because I teach in a rural area, and as you probably know, 19% of our students in this country are rural. And this is what they're interested in. And they are our base, and they're going to be our future. So, I would love to see more things done to take care of them and to make sure that as they get into the industry. I was starting to go in New Zealand. The guides would tell you that the girls are better shot, and they listen. They listen.
Agreed.
And
I
so
agree with that.
they are role models in our industry, and we need to do something about that for sure. Yep.
CJ, back to you.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on a real good point when we're coming to the death threats and protecting. But unfortunately, everybody has the availability to be anonymous on the internet due to the advent of social media. So as a hunting community, does social media hinder or help us help spread our words?
Tom Denny?
Tom.
I think it does a little bit of both. It helps us get our message out there and to spark interest in all of our followers, but it also gives the advantage to the anti-hunters to come on and do exactly what they're doing. I mean, they're picking us apart. And I think, just to touch on what you guys was talking about with why the women's getting it even worse, you guys all had really, really good answers to that. And to keep from kind of mirroring those answers, I was going to ask in the form of a question, do you think that they're doing that they're going after women just to kind of stop the growth? Men are men, and we're all bashing each other. Hey, you should let that deer go another year, and it's not a booner. It's all that stuff. but the women and the kids are kind of the future of the sport. That's the direction that we're going. That's where it's growing. And do you think they're attacking them just to kind of stop the growth?
Good point.
I think when you look at it there, Tom, to your point, even before social media, we were all young and we were all youth and we were all involved in hunting or conservation or outdoor pursuits from a very young age. And we've only seen our numbers, now that could be due to social media, seemingly grow and continues to grow. It seems like there's always new outdoor pursuit pages out on social media or other avenues, whether it is showcasing a big wall hanger or like Jeremiah with what you do after you make that kill. We've seen a lot of it kind of come out, and we've seen the kind of a diversification within it between, field to plate or field fitness, things along those lines. So I think we've kind of seen more of a growth. I'm not saying that they're not attacking the females to kind of neuter that sort of growth, we could say, but I think they're going after them and kind of like mirroring what a lot of the people have kind of said, because they are supposed to be the fairer sex. And I think every single male in here can agree that every single female hunter that they've come across in the field would run circles around them, whether it's in a stand or in a blind, and they're making shots that us as males would either never attempt or could never make. So I think our women are kind of battling back in that regard, in the fact that they're able to say, okay, I know that you're attacking me, but look what I can do better than a lot of the males.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like being that dad, I posted a picture of my 8-year-old and my 4-year-old dove hunting. They went dove hunting with me. We went out there, had a good time, and I had so much more bashing from the hunting community for taking my daughters out than I did any anti-hunter. I went and looked at everyone that was being negative, and they were all hunters. They were all following Cabela's. They were all following most of you guys. They all had pictures of big deer and big birds and duck blinds, and the negative stuff that they said about my daughters and me taking my daughters out at that age was disgusting. And I look at it for the fact of, like, I think it's a 50-50. We got 50% antis trying to stop the women, but there's a lot of male hunters who, for so long, deer camp was just a way to get away from your wife, or just a way to get away from your sisters and stuff. Like me growing up, my sisters always hunted with us. Like my sister was always a better shot than me. I just learned to shoot quicker and faster so that I would drop more birds than she would have a chance to, but she would shoot way less shells. And, deer camp has always been that. Like we went to turkey camp, and this guy was like, oh, my wife loves turkey hunting, but I won't bring her because this is guy camp. And it blew my mind, because that's never the way I was raised. I was always raised that hunting is hunting, and you're out there as a family, and it's a communal sport. And it's, if you got 12 people out there shooting birds, you have 12 times as many birds coming home than if just you and your dad and my little brother went. I mean, I have 4 older sisters. So if they didn't hunt, we wouldn't have had nearly as many duck coming home, because my dad's a horrible shot. And you look at this idea behind with me bringing my daughters out there, and we went out dove hunting this time, and the whole entire field was all males. And my daughter comes out, she's wearing pink camouflage. She has her pink little, Remington 870 that we had dipped in, in mossy oak girl camo. And I literally had a guy walk up and says, hey, you might want to go put your daughter back in the car. It's a little too hot out here. And my daughter just looked at him and was like, maybe it's too hot at 8 years old. And I think that's like looking at Brooke and looking at Eva and looking at Hannah Barron and looking at these other women. They don't care anymore. They're like, you know what? This is who I am, and this is why I am. But I think us as male hunters need to be more like that dad figure, like Scott and myself, where we can sit there saying, hey, these are our daughters. These are women that we need to respect. These are someone's mother. This is someone's sister. And yeah, they can outshoot us, and yeah, they can do it, but deer camp is no longer just for the male population. Like I went out with one of my best friends out bear hunting in Alberta, Canada. And she was sitting there, and it was the whole entire bear camp was all dudes. And they looked at her and they're like, well, where are you going to pee if you're out there? She's like, the same place you are, next to that tree. Well, there's no way for makeup. She's like, I don't care. And then so she shot this 7-foot, 8-inch bear, came back to camp. It was the biggest bear in camp. And she shot it with a bow and arrow, and all the other dudes were shooting with a rifle. When we pull up with this bear, and all the guys, their attitude changed instantly. She became the coolest chick in camp. Everyone wanted to talk to her. They all wanted to hear the story because she put her money where her mouth is. And I think that's sad that they have to do that. But I think as hunters, we're doing more destruction in the female and to each other than, and for conservation. Most hunters don't care about conservation. They just want to go shoot a big buck, and that's all they care about. So.
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on it there, Jeremiah, that it seems like there's a lot of insecurities for us as male hunters, that it used to be a male-dominated pursuit, and it used to be a male-dominated thing. Like you said, deer camp or bear camp, it used to be 100% males, but now there's more and more females getting sort of involved. And is it males that need to more or less evolve and accept that females are getting into these camps and into these sort of outdoor activities, and 9 times out of 10 they're better than us? And is it an insecurity from a male side that we're kind of going, well, crap, I mean, Brooke's coming out to bear camp and she's playing, whereas Chase and myself are out there and we're having a hell of a time trying to put down a bear? So do we need to kind of band together and support our females? Because I see a lot on social media where the females are getting lit up, and we don't really see a whole lot of males kind of stepping up saying, hey, listen, I've hunted with her, or I've hunted with females, and they could hang with just as well as we do. Let's go over to Bruce.
Yeah, I'm just thinking and about Extreme Huntress, and I've been fortunate to have a number of the candidates on my show. And last year, Melanie Peterson won it, and Melanie became the first person in the world on planet Earth to kill a Cape buffalo with a high-powered air rifle. Now, there was a lot that went into that. They built a rifle specifically for Melanie to do this, but it took a lot of guts, cojones, what do you want to say, for Melanie to face down that Cape buffalo. And she had 2 PHs and everything was right there. But Melanie's drop dead gorgeous, and all the Extreme Huntress, they're beautiful not only on the outside but the inside. And I think what Tom's done with that program, with that contest, has kind of put some guys quaking in their boots, because these gals flat can shoot. They can haul out an elk if they have to. They can ride. They can do it all. And some of the guys don't measure up, like CJ, you just said. So Tom, let's talk about a little bit about Extreme Huntress and how that is helping reshape the hunting community.
Well, thanks, Bruce. And I'll just say a little tidbit there about Melanie. Melanie's probably older than most of the people on the podcast here, including the gentleman here, Scott and I, probably, and Bruce, the oldest ones here. But she's a full-time outfitter, and she runs it herself, and her husband doesn't hunt, and he doesn't work in the outfitting business. So believe it or not, he's got his own business and does his own thing, and she runs the operation, has been real successful with it. And she's the real deal. I mean, Extreme Huntress was created, like I said earlier, to promote women who are interested in getting involved in the hunting and shooting endeavors. And really the big reason behind it is, as it's been echoed earlier today in this podcast, is the fact that if mom goes hunting, you show me a mom who hunts that doesn't get her kids into the outdoors, whether it's with a bow or a fishing rod or out there with a rifle or a shotgun. And that's really, let's face it, folks, hunting really has, over the millennia, made us the people that we are. And I'm a firm believer that women who hunt are going to be, they're going to have great families. And when you have divorce rates historically at 50% here in this country, I don't know about you guys, I've got young kids too, from 4 to 14, and it seems like, at 5, 6, 7 years of age, these kids are getting indoctrinated into all kinds of extracurricular activities. And in most states and provinces, you can't hunt, as it's been mentioned earlier, until you're 12 or 14 years of age. So if you don't have that that mentor out there, that stereotypical male mentor out there, and you don't, and you're already involved in some other Rotary this or some other sporting event at 7, 8, 9 years of age, and you can't hunt until you're 12 or 14, then we're losing that whole group of kids out there that would be involved in the outdoors and those outdoor pursuits. So, that's really the reason behind it. That's our mission. Extreme Huntress was never created to create a profit. It is definitely a nonprofit. I just didn't go out and get the nonprofit designation. But it's always fun every year. We just wrapped up filming last month at the FTW Ranch down in Texas, and then we're at a private ranch to do some hunting. And we've got some phenomenal gals from around the world that are participating this year. But again, Bruce, every year the women that participate in this thing are the real deal. And they ultimately are going to be great spokespeople for the hunting community. And that's what we're looking for.
Well, you have, if I could chime in, Tom, so I don't know if you remember Rachel Burke. She runs Lethan Valley, and she was one of your finalists one year. And so one time we're on the mountainside, and one of my kids was, let's just say, not being real manly. She took the whole hindquarters, both sides, of a huge red stag, and she was 3 months pregnant, threw it over her shoulders, blood running down the back of her neck, and humped that off the hill. But I can't show that on TV. As you guys know, right, we're limited by all these different little rules, and you can only show. So on National Geographic, they could show that, but we can't. So that's a limitation. And then with some of the shows that I've seen recently, I mean, there is a divide as to whether you're on the Outdoor Channel or whatever, and I'm not quite getting it. But, because we're on Pursuit Channel, we've dealt with a few things. And one in particular, I'm not going to name the guy's name, but we were at the Cabela's award ceremony for Brooke, and this guy found out that she won that, and so he was so happy to talk to her. The second he found out that we had a show on the Pursuit Channel, he turned around and wouldn't even comment to her one more time. It was amazingly awful. You know what I mean? So in some cases, as somebody brought up, we can be our own worst enemies, and I really don't get that part of it.
Yeah, Scott, I'll just add there, there's been a lot of talk about women and talking about, the certain men out there aren't happy to have women in the field with them. Let's face it. I mean, hunting in this day and age is morphed from being what I would call a biocentric approach. I mean, Jeremiah obviously wants to put food on the table, and that's what it was like for me growing up as a kid with a journalist for a father, a newspaper man. But in this day and age, our modern hunters have a lot of changes, and a lot of things have gone on. And, for the last 40 years since I started hunting, I've watched it change from, it was all about being in camp together and the camaraderie and spending time in the outdoors. And it's kind of morphed, when we talk about outdoor television, it's kind of morphed to, it's about booners. It's about tape measures. My wife is a master measurer for Boone and Crockett. She's a measurer for Boone and Crockett, a master measurer for SCI, one of 8 or 9 people that can teach the class in the world, and also a measurer for Roland and Ward. And you won't tell anybody in hunting camp that she's a measurer because it's happened in the past where someone comes in and they know that she's a measurer and they say, hey, my guide says we got this great 170 buck. And would you measure it up for me? And she goes out there, measures, and comes out at 169. And the guy's disappointed in his hunt. And, it's a shit hunt, and it wasn't worth it. And then he's pissed off at his guide because his guide told him it was a 170, Boone and Crockett buck. And, that you guys are really hitting on a key point here. We really have to change how we talk about hunting, but we also have to talk about why we hunt. And if it's about tape measures and putting your name in a record book, then I don't think you're hunting for the right reasons. And,
Amen.
We really have to think about that. And really, it's changed. And I don't blame the industry. And when I say industry, it's very different than community. We're all part of the community, but the industry is anybody that makes a buck off hunting or the firearms industry related to hunting. And, I look at this and I just think that, we have to figure out ways to work together. I don't care if you whittle a bow and make it, by hand and you out hunt, or you use dogs, or you want to use, a hunt behind a fence that's more than 3.5 foot tall. The reality is that we're all hunters and we all have to work together. It doesn't matter what your sex, your creed, your nationality, or what your thoughts are politically, but we all have to do what's right for wildlife. And a lot of times I just ask people a real simple question. At the end of the day, ask yourself, are the decisions you made today in the best interest of wildlife and habitat conservation? Or are they in the best interest of the dollar or the rand in Africa or your organization or your ego? And you really just have to ask a simple question. Are the decisions you made today in the best interest of wildlife and habitat conservation? It's not hard to do, and it's not a hard one to answer. And you'd be surprised how many people have a hard one putting wildlife first.
Oh, right. 100%.
I got to say, though, Tom, two things you said was the record book thing. Many people want to know the score, but many people aren't actually members or entering their deer in the record books. For example, Pope and Young is the only organization, to my knowledge, that supports bow hunting solely as its mission statement. Now, the money that goes into that, and I've been to the convention, the Pope and Young convention, goes to supporting conservation of bow hunting and so forth. Many record books are just state run or privately run. Like New York, where I'm from, has a New York State Big Buck Club. I mean, that organization really isn't doing anything, but these Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young organizations have been the forefront of protecting our bow hunting and deer hunting and probably primarily big game hunting. I think that should be noted that the record book, entering your deer in the record book, most guys that actually do enter it aren't out for bragging rights. Look at guys like Chuck Adams. I've met him personally. Yeah. He's not going to boast or brag. And look at how many animals he has in the Pope and Youngs. I know people who have 50 or 60 animals in the Pope and Young record books, and it's the guys that are bragging about the score. We've lost them years ago. So.
Yeah, and I think, Tim, maybe if we had a 3-hour podcast, we could really get into some details on this.
Well, we can do it again, Tom.
Yeah. So I guess, but to Tim, I totally get where you're coming from. My wife gets pissed at me anytime I don't put something in a record books, and I tell her, well, I don't hunt for record books. And, to each his own. It's personal preference. It doesn't matter. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that for the last 40 years that I've been around hunting, from my childhood through adults, I have seen, let's face it, it's not the hunting industry's fault why we have such an emphasis on record books. How do you sell bow and arrows? How do you sell camouflage? How do you sell optics? Well, you have to differentiate your product from your competitor. It's capitalism. And, by nature of that, there are organizations, companies that will work with people that are very successful in the field. And because of that, we now see people that will literally break game laws, spooks fans of the world, people like that will break the law in order to potentially get them a sponsorship or a TV show. And that's because of social media. We now have this floodgate of information that has no checks and balances. So this information not only goes out in the mainstream traditional media, but it also goes out all over the place on social media. So I guess my point is that we just got to think about how we phrase and how we put the right type of terminology out there to the general public. And we have to ask ourselves, do we really need to take pictures of giraffes and, I call them zoo animals, elephants and whatnot? It's an incredible experience to be able to go on a hunt for whatever species of animal and be successful in the field. And of course, for Jeremiah to be able to eat that animal. But at the same time, we're dealing with a huge segment of our society that doesn't understand why we hunt because they're completely disconnected from it. So we just got to start thinking about being smarter on how we portray why we do what we do.
And I think to piggyback on what Tom's saying, it's not to be afraid to go and do it. Not being afraid to just post a picture of the meat or just post a picture of your hand that's bloody. Like, there's been a lot of record book deer that, outfitters and guides are like, hey, I got to measure that. And I throw their tape in the bushes. And I say, nah, I don't want to have to know that. Like, when someone asks me, I want to be able to tell them I got 198 pounds of meat off of it. And that to me is my record. But I think like Chase and Tim, you can be driven by something else as long as it's respectful. I took out, this past year, I took out 3 vegans on their very first hunt. And I took out this vegan on a dove hunt. He called me up and said, hey, I want to go on a dove hunt. And so he came out there. I went with him. He got his hunting license. We got him Remington 870, went out and taught him how to shoot. And we're out in the middle of the field, opener dove on September 1st. And I'm looking at him. He's all full of tats. He's skinny. He's malnourished because he's eating vegetables. And we're sitting there, and he shoots his first dove, and it hits the ground. And I just walk over to him. I set my gun down. I go, "You okay?" He was like, "I don't know." We walked over to that dove, and doves are flying over our heads. And I'm not shooting. He's not shooting. Everyone's yelling, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And we just sat in the ground, and he just held his dove, and we talked about it. And for about 30 minutes, he went, "Okay, I'm good." He put it in his bag, and he started shooting again. And I literally just got a text message that said, "Hey, when's our next hunt?" Like, because of the fact that I wasn't afraid to take out someone to teach him something. I wasn't afraid to say, "Hey, if I don't shoot my limited dove, I'm okay with it." I've posted pictures of me holding up my duck lanyard with no ducks on it. Social media, we don't do that. Unless we limit, we don't post it. Unless we get the biggest deer, we don't post it because you get made fun of. If you go out and shoot a legal forky mule deer here in California, you're getting slammed. But it's a beautiful, legal 4-year-old deer that just is a split fork. And people are like, "Well, it's not a record book." But I'm like, "No, but it's feeding my family and my neighbors, And so I think where Tom was saying about, do we really need to post a picture of the zebra? No. But can it be a really beautiful picture of their hand on the pelt itself and tell the story behind that hand and that pelt? By all means. And I think that's more of a beautiful story than just this beautiful dead zebra that someone's holding the head all bloody. And I think that's where we need to look at it. We don't need to cater to the antis, but we're giving them fuel for their fire by just holding up a deer that's covered in blood. Like, if we can do it respectfully and beautiful, then they have no means to stand on. Like, I've never had a post deleted by Instagram or Facebook. They get blocked as sensitive material, but I have friends that are getting stuff deleted all the time. They can't delete it because it doesn't fall in the category of deletion. It's just of sensitive material. So, but I think it's beautiful what we're all doing, how we all come from different aspects, and we can all love the animal in a certain way,
But that's one
Tom
of the
Denny?
biggest things. Sorry.
Tom Denny, you still here, Tom? I guess not. Scott, you were going to say something?
Well, one of the biggest changes that I've seen is and what I get flack about is to make sure everybody, the biggest thing they care about is whether you're eating it, and obviously that is our thing, and our family, that's what we do. But wherever we go and whatever they do, but as an omnivore, we're 20% efficient, so you're crapping it out. So honestly,
Yeah.
when people want to sit there and argue about that, yet they're going to give me all sorts of flack about a mounted animal. Now, I've got a caribou out in my wildlife center that I packed that thing 42 miles. I took 2 trips at 21 miles, and every time I look at that mount, it brings me back to that mountain in that moment. And I should have the right as an American citizen to enjoy that,
Amen.
and so should everybody else. And as far as the taxidermists get hammered on this kind of stuff, and it's another part of our industry. And I truly feel that at some point there has to be some really eloquent wording put out there so that people start to understand that there are different aspects to all of this, and every bit of it's okay. If I harvested and ate that caribou, but yet I still enjoy him, and I will for the rest of my life, I should be allowed to do that, And I come
agree.
from a situation where, I didn't have anybody to show me to hunt. I mean, my dad tried, but he wasn't an outdoor person, so I was self-taught, and having, mentors and other people help out today. I just think we're going in the right direction in so many different ways. And then, you guys brought up another part of this thing is I've had people pound me. It's okay if we eat it, but they're antis, yet they turn around, they got a leather belt, a leather purse, they go and sit in an Audi with leather seats. And, maybe there's a fear that hunters don't want to go there, but it's one of those things. I mean, if you mention that Jell-O, an animal died so you could eat Jell-O, and a lot of these people, I'm sure they eat Jell-O if they're going to say something against us hunting and having meat, but yet it's, it's okay. And,
Right.
and, if you mention that brand name, I don't know if people are afraid, then you can get sued for something like that. And, being able to back ourselves up, there's a whole bunch of information out there on that kind of stuff that needs to be made public, that, we're not ignorant, and we need to not be treated like we are,
One thing I'd like to throw out, if I could, two things. Why I hunt is because it's a journey that took me from 10 years old to now 72 years old to places all over North America, from Ungava Bay to Iliamna and parts in between. And the biggest thing that I remember when I was up in Kuujjuaq on Ungava Bay, and I flew out and we were hunting caribou and catching brook trout, 3 to 5 pounds, and it was just a great trip. And there was an elder in camp, and I said, "What's your life all about?" And the elders go all the way back. The Inuits go all the way back to the land, Bering Sea land bridge. And you think about that, and he said it's really simple. I said, "How so?" If the caribou come, we live. If they don't come, we die. And I never forgot that lesson from him, because hunting, and I know CJ's story, so hunting has helped me live my whole life for 72 years, has helped me overcome. Now, you can't say that in 20 seconds. You can't say that on CNN or whatever, and they won't get it. They'll go, "What are you talking about?" I'm talking about I did 30 days of rehab. Hunting saved my life. And you start thinking about all these things, and it comes back to the Inuit elder who said, "The caribou come, we live. If they don't come, we die." And that's how those people have lived, off the caribou. And they killed caribou, and they eat every single piece of that. And it's just incredible. And the other thing about Africa is that nobody that bashes people killing stuff in Africa understand where that protein goes. And it goes to the people that live there, the people that have absolutely dirt, nothing. They live in dirt floors. And when Cape Buffalo is killed, an elephant killed, a giraffe is killed, the gemsbuck is killed, whatever, that protein, one, goes to the camp, and two, goes to all the people in the surrounding area. And that helps combat poaching. And that's a whole nother story for another time. But I think of those two things. One, the protein that is shared with people who need it. And I share a lot of deer every single year because I'm fortunate to hunt in a number of states. And people get that meat, that need that meat. And then the Inuits, if the caribou come, we live. If they don't, we die. And to me, that's as simple as it is. Thoughts? Comments?
Yeah, Bruce, you kind of alluded to it there with my story. And for those of you guys that don't know or that haven't read or listened to the podcast, I was a pretty high-level football player up here in Canada and ended up breaking my neck. And after a while there, I wasn't able to go out in the field, and I wasn't able to go out and hunt and fish and just be alone in the wild. And I felt that toll on my mental psyche. And kind of along Bruce's Inuit line, I'm a firm believer that the outdoors did save my life on that day where I kind of woke up and said, "You know what, I got to do something. I got to go out there and be that voice and let my injury not define me." I broke my C2 vertebrae, which is commonly known as a hangman's break, and I could have very easily died on that field. But now I'm fortunate enough to be out in the field and living. And it's been vastly therapeutic for me. I've been able to go out there and run and rodeo again and hunt and box and do everything that I was passionate about before. And even in my day-to-day work, it hasn't hampered me. And I think a big part of that is due to being outdoors and just the therapeutic nature of smelling the pines and hearing the waters and the winds, different bird calls and everything. And it really circles you back. And once you get into that right frame mentally, anything is kind of easy to achieve. So without hunting, I don't know where I would be. Without fishing, I don't know where I would be. and it's been a beautiful journey for that. And to kind of on Bruce's second there, as far as Africa goes, yeah, I'm kind of with you. In 2013, I was fortunate enough to go down to Mexico and do some hunts and fishing. And on day 2, we ended up going deep sea, and we ended up catching a 7-foot bull shark and brought that thing into shore. And we see a lot of people right now with aquatic conservation, which is great. But when we brought that thing over to our boat, we slaughtered it, and we were able to donate that to the people that were in need and the people that needed that protein and that needed that meat. And with all the bonitas and mahi and barracudas, we did the exact same thing. But it was the shark that ended up getting a lot of the blasts and a lot of the death threats that I've received and a lot of the hate. And we butchered it right up for them, and seeing the look of appreciation from the people when we were handing it to them. And I know, Chase, you're big into donating a lot of your meat. So I kind of want to talk on that. Is we've kind of alluded to it in the fact that if you're eating it, it's seeming to be okay. But where does that line kind of get drawn? So we shoot that wall hanger and that record animal and say we eat it or we donate it. What makes one animal different than another? So I donated hundreds of deer, and I've donated a shark. The deer was fine, but the shark was this big hatred. So what is the definitive line that we need that script and that we need that softer approach when we're posting these photos or saying, hey, I caught a shark, or hey, I shot a pronghorn? How do we outline that?
I personally think a lot of people need to cherish some of the experiences they have more for themselves and not be so quick to post on social media. There's things that I do that I do keep private. For example, a friend and I, we do have a vlog, and it's based around hunting, but there's things that we do, like for example, we're floating a river in about a span of 2 or 3 miles, and we have cameras along this river that's public land, and we're not posting every single little move and taking all these scenic shots that we probably could be doing, because it's more near and dear to our heart. And you go to the hospital you get 3 stitches in your finger, and people are posting pictures of that. I mean, people need to cherish their family time and their experiences more than just for social media. I don't know where the line gets drawn. I don't see the problem with a shark. You wouldn't think anyone would, but these days everybody finds something, though.
And this is something I've kind of dealt with a whole lot. Being someone that hunts and travels and things like that as much as I do, and then people hear that I don't really eat any animals that I harvest. Now I do a few of my hogs. I normally do my gator, the axis deer. I've been fortunate enough to hunt free range axis in Texas several times, and I really love the taste of that meat. But one thing with me is I grew up pretty much eating nothing but wild game. That's all we had. I know that today's times are way different than what they were back in the 40s and 50s. But when you still live in a single parent home, things can still be pretty tough even at this day and time. So that's kind of what I grew up on. And as I got older and that's all I had to eat, you kind of get tired of it, and then I developed an allergy to it, and so a lot of people, I take pride that I am, I don't know if you would call it a trophy hunter or what. I don't really care much for that term, but I don't know how else to describe it. I do shoot does. That's just part of a proper management plan. I take people hunting with me that do shoot smaller deer because that's what they're happy with, and that's great. But for me, I'll target, here we are $3 state, and I'll target 3 deer that I want to harvest. That don't always happen. I don't know that it's ever happened that I killed all 3 of them, but but that's my plan going into the year. And that drives me all year long is, I'm hunting these 3 animals. That is my hunt. That's my passion is to hunt these animals. And then once you take those animals and you post them on Facebook and things, and after you get all the jealousy and everything, I'm sure all you guys have experienced that. Especially, it seems like the bigger the animal, the more people want to bash it. And I'm not killing booners, I'm in Virginia, so booner here is very rare. They're just not on any of my properties. But then whenever it goes to, to I don't eat them, it seems to be worse with the bigger animals because they're like, oh, well, you're just shooting them for the horns. And that's true in a sense because, that is my pride. Whenever I kill that target animal, that's what I've hunted for. That is, that's it for me. That is the mecca. But they don't look at, a lot of the lands that I have. My ability to hunt those lands relies on me getting the landowners that don't hunt that meat. And I donate everything I kill, but just as Chris was saying with the shark thing, it seems like there's certain type of animals that people just don't care about. I went on a hog hunt in Texas, and my brother and I, we shot 63 hogs in 3 nights down there. Farmer would not let us drag them out of the field. They were in wheat fields. He said, leave them. Do not, don't do anything with them. Don't drag them out. So, okay, we skint hogs until, we couldn't do it anymore. But he had to get those out. When you kill that many hogs in that short of time in a 60-acre wheat field, you've got a problem. And people ask me, well, how did you eat all that hog meat? I'm like, to be honest with you, I didn't. And they don't care. But if I go out here and shoot 3 deer, it's a totally different deal. And there's a sense, a whitetail is kind of I guess, there's more whitetail hunters than anything, in my opinion, and maybe that's just what I see because of where I live and things like that. But there's definitely a difference. There's a difference in species. There's a difference in, the antler size. People freak out if I don't eat, a buck with bigger horns than one with smaller horns. It's like that animal with the smaller horns is a lesser animal when it's not. But I catch a lot of flack about that. Well, why do you even hunt if you're not going to eat it? Well, I don't eat it, but other people do. I've never killed an animal with the intention of someone not eating it. I skin the animal, prepare it. Whenever somebody gets meat from me, that's what they get is meat. They don't get a whole animal that's been riding in the back of my truck all day that now they got a skin. I'm not like that. And I think a lot of times that gives a bad name to it too, because I know people that will shoot a deer, call around 20 people trying to give it away, and then they take it and drop it off and it's still got the guts in it. That's just horrible. But I don't know where the line is there myself because I've dealt with it so much and it seems to have never really changed. As soon as I tell people a lot of times that I don't really eat them, it puts a bad taste in their mouth. But as you guys can see, I have no problem telling anyone that because it's who I am. It's what I do. I have a love for this sport that is unlike what most people will ever realize. And my hunt, there's a reason why I hunt the way that I do. There's a level of passion in that, and I don't have to go by everybody else's rules of well, you've got to eat it yourself and and things like that. It's just not what I do. But I would never kill an animal without the intention of someone having that meat. I'm not a wasteful person, but it's a very fine line there. But wrapping this up, like he was saying about the shark, I don't know what it is at all. When I killed my gator, nobody expected me to eat it, and that was one of the few animals that I actually ate myself. So it's very odd to me, and I think it's more of people let on that they care more than what they do. Um, people like PETA and those organizations that just try and tear us as hunters down. They don't care, as like what Bruce was saying, they don't care that that animal is donated to the people over there because that's what they rely on to survive. They don't care. They only care about the animals, and they don't truly that because we all know what they do with the putting all the animals down, the pets and things. I think it's more people trying to find importance in their life than anything. Trying to stand behind something, no matter how crazy it is. That's to me what all this stems from. It's not that they truly 100% care, because if you care about something, you research both sides of it a lot. No matter which side of the fence you're on, you've researched both sides, and they have no clue what actually happens because they don't want to. They're all just jumping on a wagon to have some purpose in this world, in my opinion, and it's just crazy to me.
Brooke, what do you think?
Um, I was taking a lot of that in. So for me, as far as going back to CJ's kind of original question about, where do we draw the line? For me, what I've seen is that predators often trigger a response from antis more than like deer. Deer seem to be like, okay, that's acceptable. That seems like a normal thing to eat. When you see people hunt a mountain lion or a bear, all of a sudden everybody loses it. And I think there's a couple of things that happen there. One, I think people assume they understand things about bears and cats because they grew up, reading stories, watching documentaries. They think that they're cuddly animals, or that there's almost like this connection because we're predators too, that there's like this that it's wrong. So I see a lot of that. But as far as being respectful in social media, I'm somebody who's always been a super people pleaser, and I'm an English teacher, so I'm all about being, trying to spin words correctly to make people happy. And one of the things that I really try to take pride in is that for me, I never post super bloody pictures of animals, meat totally, but I try to post really respectful pictures of animals. There was a couple rules for the SCI and Cabela's Award. You couldn't have a kid sitting on an animal because it was considered, like disrespectful. So I try to kind of keep that in mind, and I have a really diverse social media outreach, and I have a lot of people who are vegan who still follow me because I spend the time to be eloquent and to help people understand this is why I do what I do, instead of doing the angry, bullish kind of bashing of anti-hunters. And I can understand why people who have never done what we do would find it scary or repulsive or be really disconnected from it. So I really try to be empathetic and put myself in their shoes, and then kind of come up with that explanation for them. And for me, as far as like horns or antlers or things like that, my dad can attest to this. He has always tried to be like, oh, Brooke, you got 2 tags for this, you could go get another one. And I'm like, no, I really don't need to. I have always been very content with management animals because eating them is one of my priorities. But I also love to put my animals on the wall. I've had, antis come at me and be like, oh, that's disgusting. Like, why would you do that? And it's kind of what my dad said earlier, in that, that's my memory. Besides the pictures, that's kind of my memory of this amazing thing that I did. And to bring it all together, hunters really can have it all. I think that we spend so much time tearing each other apart, and right now we've got a bunch of different viewpoints that everybody has brought up, and they're all okay. Nobody is the bloodthirsty monster that an anti-hunter wants you to believe that we are, and we all have different reasons why we do what we do, but it's all okay. And so you can mount your animal on the wall, you can take pictures of it, you can only hunt for meat, we can do all of these things, and it's all okay. we really need to rally behind each other and stop judging each other for the reasons why we do it. Because we have enough flack from people who don't understand why we do what we do. And so doing what we're doing right now, taking the time to explain to people that it is about being in the outdoors. It is about feeding your family. It is about this beautiful, wonderful experience that you have with other people, instead of saying, well, you're dumb because you don't agree with me. You know, taking the time to help people understand is how we are going to continue to keep our sport alive.
Yeah, I think we've kind of all nailed the point on the head here. Is we're all talking about respect. And I think Jeremiah and Brooke, you guys brought up great points in the fact that we don't need to be posting photos, of an animal just completely slaughtered. We have to respect and do our best for that animal as well. That animal gave its life to sustain us and our family and our community. We need to do right by that animal. And I think, if you take an animal, great, by all means post it, but be respectful of it, because that animal you need to respect and understand that it gave itself for you. And I think by putting up photos that are essentially targets for these antis, it doesn't do the animal any justice. And I think we need to do right by the animals. Doesn't matter if it's a gator or a whitetail or a shark. I think we need to be better for the animals that we target.
Agreed.
Let's wrap up. We've been on for been going for an hour and a half, so let's just go around and one more time in a couple of minutes. Just say why you hunt. Chase, why don't we start with you?
I hunt because that's just my main lifestyle. That's my driving life. It's what brings me joy. Seeing people get introduced to the sport. I've been a hunter all my life, and I'll always continue to do it.
Somebody jump in there.
I hunt for the sole purpose of feeding my family, feeding my friends, and getting those who aren't interested in the outdoors excited about the outdoors by changing perceptions with respect, honor, and a good meal. Because if we don't eat, we die as a human species. And if I can change someone's mind by putting a delicious meal in front of them, then I'm going to do my part, and I'm going to feed as many people as I can to change as many minds as I can.
I hunt due to it's who I am as a person. I take great pride in being able to provide for my family and being able to provide not only just meat, but that sense of responsibility and that sense of understanding of where your meals come from and the conservation effort behind it. It's all about a responsibility to our planet and a responsibility to ourselves. And that would be why I hunt. I'll go. I hunt because it's really all I have. Started as a kid and led to my career and going to college, and I'd be lost without it. So it's near and dear to my heart, and I want people to see that the adventures and the success that I've had in my young life, and hopefully they can find an adventure near or far from home and meet some great people along the way.
Brooke?
For me, hunting has taken me to the ends of the earth. I have, been on mountains in New Zealand and then plains in Africa and all over North America. I never would have met my husband before without hunting. It's a bonding experience for my dad and I that's super special to us. It's a part of our culture. And I very much care about spending time in the outdoors, conserving the outdoors. I love animals. And lastly, I love knowing where my food comes from. That's super important to me. And so that has become kind of my main mission in hunting.
Scott?
Well, I hunt. My wife calls it my religion. I would be there 24/7 if I could. There is nothing more special for me than to get into an animal's head and try to think like they do. Humans can say what they feel and think, but they can't. And so for me, I moved when I was 9 years old from a street that had 13 kids my age that we played sports together to out in the boonies in Crab Hollow Road in Black Creek, New York, where there was nobody. So my world was the woods, and spending all my time out there, that's where I belong. And as everybody said, providing for my family, it is something that it's hard to explain to people really. And I couldn't love animals anymore, and yet here I have captive deer, and people are like, how can you have deer and then you turn around and go and shoot an animal, and that needs to be a half an hour conversation. So I hunt because it is who I am.
And I hunt because I'm a steward, and I'm a conservationist, and I help manage what's been placed on Earth for us to manage. And so because of that, I have an obligation to every single animal that I've ever killed, every single animal that I've ever hunted, every single animal that I've eaten and fed lots and lots of people. But we're here to be stewards, and that means take care of everything on Earth, not just the critters, but our water and our air and all those things. But yet I'm a hunter, so nobody would call me a extremist for the environment, but yet I am. And it's a huge paradox that we could sit here and talk and have people from all different places, and I'm really excited how our panel worked out, or how the campfire worked out, because it just worked out really beautifully that way, because we had all different insights to the world of hunting. And it's up to us, and it's up to every single listener that hears this, and we'll probably, will we go 50,000, 100,000? Probably, if we all share it, you'll get a lot of traffic on this. But it's our job, just like you said, Jeremiah, you took a vegan out hunting. But see, nobody else had ever extended that hand. And Ace Luciano talked about adding one, and he took one new person every single year hunting. And listeners, just do that, or have a conversation, or get a hold of Jeremiah and say, man, I'm having this guy over and his family, and what should I feed him? I got this, and this, and can you give me some recipes? Well, heck, Jeremiah will give him some recipes. He'll cook it up and bottle of beer, or some good single malt, or bourbon, or good wine. And
just water, Bruce.
Oh, water. Okay.
They all need water.
Water. Okay, fine. But having said that, listeners, and to the group, it's up to us, and that's where I want this campfire series to go. It's up to us. It's not up to the media. It's not up to anything. It's up to us to come together, reach common ground, and just extend a hand.
Amen.
Final thoughts?
Yeah, I think what you said, taking a new person out, it's huge. I took out 123 new hunters last year, between the ages of 9 and 79. And not everyone shot an animal, but everyone became a steward of the land, and everyone loved it, and everyone enjoyed it. And to watch a 7-year-old shoot a pheasant, and watch a 79-year-old man live his dream and finally shoot a pronghorn in Wyoming, there's nothing better. I tell everyone all the time, I would not shoot another animal the rest of my life if I could watch someone else get the joy of being outdoors and shooting another animal. I would live with an empty freezer, as long as that person gets excited. So by you saying take one person out, if one person, I have 37,000 followers on Instagram. If each person took one new hunter out this year, that's 37,000 new people introduced to our sport. That's just me
just
alone.
do the math. I mean, the math,
ridiculous,
exponentially just goes off the charts, but we don't do it. And um, I want to thank each one of you, Chase, Jeremiah, and Scott, and Brooke, and Christopher, and Tim, and Tom. Opry had to leave, and Tom Denny had to leave. But thanks for being this, and give me some feedback. whitetailrendezvous@gmail.com. Pluses, minuses, how we can make this better. But I think we're on to something that CJ and I, kind of kicked around and threw it together, and because I think this is good. Now we've got to get it out there, but I think this is good. So I want to thank each and every one of you for taking your time this evening to be part of the Campfire series.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
Thank you very
Bruce.
much, Bruce. Good luck this fall, everybody.